Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to the channel, RPG with DBJ, and welcome to this future Future Friday, where we talk about all things science fiction, transhumanists, um, eclipse phase, altered carbon, and all that kind of jazz. Now, of course, on this Future Friday, we end the week with our week long deep dive, our week long subject as we talk about random encounters. As we talk about random encounters all the way from Monster Monday through World Building Wednesday and now into Future Friday. And yeah, random encounters, I think, while they have started to migrate away from the tabletop RPG uh, content, I still think they have a place and a use depending on the lessons that we've learned for ourselves while we were talking about it most of this week, right? Where the initial for a little background, the initial reason for even having random encounters in the first place um, depends on when you're considering something. So, for example, if you're 3 weeks out before the game starts, using some kind of randomizer, whether they're cards, random tables for dice, asking some random questions to your players and coming up with different ideas from them, is this idea that it's basically just an inspiration generator, right? You find a random table, you figure out what aspects of that table correspond to your setting. If it doesn't correspond, you throw it out, you find something else, and you roll on it. Okay. But during the game, random encounters, especially when we're talking about the original Dungeons and Dragons and moving forward, was a tension generator. And that tension generator was, hey, if you sit still, there's a good chance something random is going to bump into you. Some random monsters or scouts in a dungeon or something like that. But I still feel, especially if in science fiction, I would even think more so in science fiction than anything, that um, that a random encounter, whether it is something extremely random, way outside the player's control, all the way to something interpersonal, I think really does matter in science fiction, because I feel like science fiction itself, and even if with futurism, when you have so much of your world explained and analyzed and predetermined for you when it comes to science, right? Our science tells us how gravity works and radiation and light and mechanics, and then when it comes to specific characters with cybernetics and computer hacking and alien, xenomorphic, modifications and psychic powers. A lot of science fiction is not predetermined, but we are never surprised by our introduction and outcome of the things that are around us. But life always throws us a curveball, and that's where I think random encounters, as a tool in our toolbox for when it comes to science fiction and especially transhumanism, really works. So this show might be just like a rehash of the rest of the week, but no worries there, right? Like, just as random as it is that I don't have my alien landscape behind me, sometimes things just happen just because, right? Yeah. Cameron says in a lot of science fiction, the populations are a lot bigger than in fantasy. That alone would create more random encounters. No, I'm absolutely with you. I think just people going about their daily lives while the player characters are on whatever mission it is a specific thing, right? Like, for example, most science fiction habitats include large populations of people in a small area, right? So you're going to have anything from like crowds to workers to robots to construction equipment or fixing something. Like, a lot of those kind of things haphazardly placed around your science fiction setting, I think could really help out. Dead Man says an Eclipse Phase Second Edition does have a random have a random capability to character generation, though there are very few other random tables. And like I said, I think it's just the era that we're in tabletop role playing, where mind you, this isn't anything wrong with it, but I think it's just listen. A lot of us don't have a lot of time. We want to get to the front door of the story, right? So we're not gonna do the classic. Let's meet in the tavern. Let's wait for someone to randomly come into the tavern with a secret message that sends us off to another planet. No, we're in orbit around the planet already. We're just gonna, hand wave how we got there, and the mission, statement or whatever, is already been implanted. You're like, listen, okay, it took us 3 weeks to get here. Blah 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 blah. We're in orbit. Hell, we might not even be in orbit anymore. We've literally just walked out of the shuttle, headed towards the front door of the alien construct, even though the trip could have taken 2 years. Right? Yep. Yeah, Tesla's like, you meet in 10 forward. Guinan is standing there ready to give you your mission. Blah blah blah. Yeah, most of the time, especially even in science fiction, we're like looking at our watch, like, okay, come on, we really don't have time for this. Let's get to the front door of the story. But I think even within that context, a little bit of like foreshadowing of some random things could be pretty important. Um, Deadman says in Eclipse Phase First Edition has the random tables in the Transhuman book. I do not own the Transhuman book, but yes, like here's an example. Um, let's start very wide and come in narrowly as to get to like Cameron's point here. Oh, by the way, for you guys who are new to the channel goes live on Twitch, YouTube, and our own Discord server. So you could participate in the show live using joining our Discord server and just slide down to the boiler room, and where all the cool kids like to hang out. So going very large, and I know you've seen this trope used a million times in science fiction. Hey, Lurker, what's going on there? Glad to have you. In science fiction, how many times have our protagonist arrived to an alien location, and there's some kind of like radiation, nebula, solar flare, static gravity fluctuation going on in the background, right? As our foreshadow of things to come. Because later on in the story, what happens? Communications are bad, or there's an energy flux and the engines are malfunction or something, or the whatever force field protection is happening in the game, in the story, somehow it doesn't work as normally as it would. Star Trek does this all the time. Hey, in our story, we don't want the transporters to instantly solve the problem. So guess what? When they arrive, someone says offhandedly, "Oh, you know what, guys? Transporters might be offline for the next 6 hours while you go down to the planet." Well, we have to go down to the planet anyway, so let's beam down. And when the ship comes back around orbit, we'll be able to transport ourselves up. So now there's a 6 hour window where you can't instantly solve it, or something of that nature, right? So, and thank you, Deadman. Deadman puts into the Discord the transhuman book is for free. By the way, for those who don't know, and you really want to get into like Eclipse phase, or you're into like futurism, the first edition books are completely free by literally going over to the Eclipse phase website. Um, Rob Boyle has always made those books free, which is amazing considering the amount of time and energy and creativity it took to lay those books out. And it's a lot of material too. Anyway, so intergalactic random natural events are a really great thing you can stick into your back pocket, because you may not even need to use it for the game. But if you want to have things get disrupted, whether it's communication, sensors, you want some kind of energy field outside to randomly affect like robot systems, or to drain the power core for the engine of the starship so the players just happen to not be able to get away. That's a really great thing to use. And of course, here we go: solar flares, neutrino spurts, pulsars, gamma ray uh, bursts, or something like just something random. Now you could go into something more physical, where like asteroid fields, meteor strikes, uh, the destroyed debris of a abandoned habitat, or the sabotage of anarchists that destroyed a floating space habitat, and that debris is impacting things generally, or something. Heck, our own exiting our own Earth's gravity, well, we know that there's tons and tons of trash up there already. So you could dump a lot of that as well up into space, and then use that as a foreshadow for other events happening, where someone's engines gets taken out, or the hull gets pierced randomly, and there's uh, explosive decompression or something like that. Rickard says there's Star Trek. Talk about Star Trek random tables. Yeah, goes on to say which part of the super high tech AI ship um, fails like a used car this week. Sure does. Every Star Trek random table. This episode, the roll. Hey, the holodeck happens to have an AI system, and all of a sudden the people in the holodeck start walking around the ship or something. You're like, that doesn't make any sense, but yep. Um, oh man. What's another one? Oh, he goes on to say, random techno sounding thingamabob that solves any problem this week. Yeah, there is that. And then the random feature that is different than a human to make an instant alien. Yeah, the plastic nose, the plastic ears, the stickums. Oh man, random random colors in wearable clothing. The future of wearables. I believe you can buy Rorschach Rorschach masks now that change by the temperature on your face or something. And Rickard rounds it out for what prop made of styrofoam will Kirk dodge this week? Usually a boulder or something, or maybe a piece of a like a something heavy in a warehouse made out of spray painted gray, made out of styrofoam. It's awesome though. Lurker says main technical issue in Trek was um, was Petty Diana Troy commanding the ship. She crashed two ships. Ooh, did she? Jesus. And how many times? All right, how many times was it a Diana Troy? I'm not sure what I'm sensing. And then it's like, Jordy, what do you see with your cybernetic eyesight? I don't know quite, Captain. I'm not quite sure. Right? There's been quite a number of those things. Like, I've got this high tech thing. They can't sense what's going on. Despite the sarcasm, there, you know, space debris in and of itself is a random thing that could happen in a game. Oh, there it is. Kessler syndrome. Thank you, Tesla. The Kessler syndrome, also called the Kessler effect, collisional cascading or ablation cascade, proposed by NASA scientist Donald J. Kessler in 1978, is a theoretical scenario in which the density of objects in low Earth orbit, LEO, due to space pollution, is high enough that will it take me there? Yeah, is high enough that collisions between objects could cause a cascade in which each collision generates space debris that increases the likelihood of further collisions. One implication is that the distribution of debris in orbit could render space activities and the use of satellites in specific orbital ranges difficult for many generations. To this day, they are trying to figure out how to not do that, because we go, well, space is big. Who cares if I dump a dead body out there? And as we've joked, um, semi joked on this show about the strangeness of having space funerals and dumping someone's dead body out there, that their body becomes a projectile, you know, and maybe not to you because you're moving at relativistic speeds with the person who passed away, right? But in any object in space for any reason actually becomes a stellar, an object that you can run into as an impact source. So yeah, but you know what? How many times have we seen that come up in science fiction? I would, yeah. Deadman says a map of all the debris in space, um, uploaded to Wikimedia, to the Wikipedia Commons page, and they're still trying to track. I mean, to this day, they try to track that stuff live, because how many times have we dumped stuff in space? Far too often than we should have. Yep. Yeah, Cameron, corpse torpedoes. Oh hell yeah. He says, also says, I appreciate that. Um, Scrounging is a skill in Eclipse phase. I'm working on a space fantasy game. I'm calling calling Scrounger. I just popped over to the Eclipse phase site to check out the game for a sec. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I could imagine that to get rid of that debris, there's probably a uh, like trash collectors. There's probably scavengers and people like that going through debris in space orbit to both both absolutely necessary and probably looked down upon as well as a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. Maybe using electromagnets, maybe. I don't know how you would collect all that crap in space, but whatever. I hear your record like from the captain. Jordy, what do you see with your high tech goggles? Jordy, Captain, the goggles do nothing. I see nothing. I don't know. That's happened more often than a little bit on the show, right? It's not like Jordy's like, oh, well, let me scan through infrared. Okay, not ultraviolet. All right, let's go into the hot. You know what I mean? Like it would have been cooler for a little bit more of that to happen, but whatever. Um, Yeah, Lurker says Earth actually has a thin ring around it due to the debris. SpaceX scientist was talking about it. Yeah, and actually, there are a lot of planets that have rings, while not quite visible to us with the naked eye. That that they do have rings. Like Jupiter has a ring around it. Saturn, of course, is most notable for having a very visible, icy, multiple layered icy ring around it, but a lot of planets have rings as well, due to just geological debris from impacts and such. But we've created our own ring around our own planet. Yeah, Cameron says space trash collecting is way too interesting to me. Imagine all the gear you need and the teamwork to get to the good stuff. Oh heck yeah! And if you're going to bother sending up all of the good stuff, you're not going to bring it back down to Earth. You're going to leave it up there. So why not? And on top of all of that, on top of all of that stuff, you have crime, war, sabotage, corporate infiltrations and things that anarchists, that are trying to destroy or happen to have problems with destruction, or just general accidents. Someone's habitat was not being monitored correctly, and it has an impact, or stresses make it shatter, and then you have debris. But Sir Isaac Newton is the deadliest son of a bitch in space. I remember that one. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sir Isaac Newton from Mass Effect 2. Yeah. Oh man. Now, but how many times, there it is, planetes, garbage collecting in space, because in space bolts screw you. I like that. Planetes, derived from the Greek word for planets, which translates to wanderers. Planetes, and I like that image of the spacewalker on a long cable reaching out for a lost bolt or something like that. Yeah, I like it. And mind you, you could foreshadow something of that nature, right? Like, player characters get ready to arrive at a space habitat. They're looking outside the shuttle. They see their workmen and crew working on adding an additional, I don't know, sensor dish or something like that. And out of the corner of your eye, you see one of the the spaceman takes the wrong step and falls off, dropping a box of bolts and his wrench or something, and swings off the side of the ship, and everyone's just looking like as the debris goes tumbling off into space, and they're like, shit. And he'd been ready to come into orbit. PCs are like, turn around, turn around, turn around, tapping the pilot on the shoulder, like, I don't see what the problem is. You're only going to be here for a couple of weeks. Like, yeah. Planet-ist is a 26-episode anime series based on a manga series of the same name by Makoto Yukimura that provides a realistic and dramatic view of life in space in the near future. The principal casts are the debris section of the Technora Corporation, space trash collectors that are charged with the prevention of deadly orbital collisions with free-floating junk. Never heard of it, but that sounds really amazing. Wow. Wow, that's awesome. Lurker says had an idea for a comic powered supervillain, a cosmic powered supervillain who uses the debris as ammo for a railgun style attack. See, that's the other thing too, right? Yeah, you start dumping some random debris down into the orbit of a planetary surface, like through rail gunning it. just how much gas do I need to launch this tiny little tungsten bolt into the atmosphere before it burns up? Yeah, nasty. But I mean, but a truism, right? So the other part of like random encounters, I think. Now, mind you, what we're talking about could be happening in the background while the players are going on their mission or whatever, right? They're trying to extract corporate data or rescue a enslaved corporate scientist, or disable a machine that's creating, black holes for a corporate entity, or take out some nanotech swarm that's taken over a particular location, right? And then all of a sudden, hilarity ensues when debris starts piercing through the ship, and the solar flares start going off because it's been predicted by in space, maybe there's like the weatherman, except the guy's name, Comet Johnson, and Comet Johnson always talks about space weather, and it talks about like solar flares and solar winds, and gravity around Jupiter is going to be a little bit disruptive for the next 3 days, but hey, you guys know, and as you start circling around to the other side of the big red spot, be aware that like it might be something like that. You throw that in the background, you throw that as a foreshadow, and then later on, when the antagonists try to take their ship into the big red storm of Jupiter, and the PCs have to follow in. Now you've got things like extra radiation preventing their sensors from working very well, or preventing navigation or communications to the outside world, maybe even preventing the player characters from beaming their consciousnesses from their cortical stacks when they are on this suicide mission, knowing that if they die now, no one's going to ever be able to recover the information from their stacks as they start falling into Jupiter's heavy gravity or something, right? Other random things can happen due to, well, people, or just people living their lives, or things happening because life needs to still go on. StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 1 intro cinematic also had people salvaging ships in what looks like a ship graveyard. I think ship. I have to agree with you, Cameron and guys. Like, I think the idea of being like a scavenger is actually kind of cool. You would have to. You wouldn't want to necessarily make it a monster of the week kind of thing, where the beginning of every adventure is them scavenging some other place. But I could see something very sensitive being left in some place to scavenge, because it's got such dangerous information that some like very powerful, hyper core wants to get rid of the PCs, because they found out that it wasn't an accident that had this habitat shred apart. It was a deliberate sabotage or something like that. Um, the the um, the goings on of humanity itself, in many ways, is a randomizer. I think in science fiction that sometimes we may not use too often in tabletop role playing games. So it makes perfect sense in science fiction. So what I mean by that is randoms going on by people. Construction is a really good one. Moving large items and objects from one place to another could impede movement, could get in the way. Automated systems might be affecting or being used in and around a particular location that the PCs um, are going on a mission, and then all of a sudden now they're like there are robots that are like seeming like they're attacking them, but they're really not attacking them. There it is. Yeah, Beastie Boys. It's a sabotage. Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of things you can do to throw like a random, like festivals are a great excuse to have some kind of random people randomly doing things in a festival. Maybe everyone's dressed similarly, and the main antagonist snatches a baseball cap off of someone's head and slips into the crowd, right? How many times have we seen that happen? But the reason it happens is because there's a foreshadow of a sporting event or a festival or a funeral where everyone's dressed in black with black umbrellas, or there's a crowd of people who are like cheering for their local musician or something, and they're like having fun listening to music. And what happens? Someone runs into the crowd, and PCs want to get away from the enemy themselves, and they use the crowd as cover and stuff. Lurker humans, the cockroaches of the galaxy. You're not wrong, because it's really pretty difficult to squish us because we're always like popping back up again. Like, oh man. But some other things could be like along with the construction slash destruction kind of thing, where there might be automated robots that are trying to fix, build, redistribute or something, shifting heavy loads around, ignoring what the player characters are doing because they are about their mission in the first place. Now, I'm sure there's some safety protocols, but heck, if there's automated systems trying to lift 30 metric tons of alloy steel into place and weld it shut and take things and bolt things together and all that kind of business, and there's a running gunfight happening in and around those structures, it could get a little bit dubious, right? Same thing when it goes for like gravity and radiation, especially if like there are signs and notes posted around going like, everyone stay away from Sector 7. There will be exposed radiation out in space. No need to worry if you stay inside. And then of course, what happens? You got to have some kind of criminal meeting in Sector 7. You have to have some kind of sabotage in Sector 7, thereby sending, player characters in spacesuits. There's a running gun battle. And oh, guess what? You have a limited time before you become irradiated, and so why not use that as a randomizer? And when I say a randomizer, I don't mean like just pulling things out of your ass, but like, okay, if the player characters are on Mercury, for example, maybe there are a list of like half a dozen to a dozen random things that normally would be happening on Mercury, like random random workers who are mining for ore, or automated systems that are constantly fixing the highway or railway that goes around Mercury because it keeps getting blasted when it turns towards the sun, right? And so maybe there's like an automated track building system that constantly, rolls around Mercury, and then maybe a PC could get trapped near it and might get run over or something, or some kind of adversary or something hides inside of it, or uses it as cover, or et cetera, et cetera. Maybe there's something important, a clue that was left on this machine because everyone just ignores it because it's sitting in the background. it fades from view because people have seen it so often or something. Yeah, like Rickard says, yeah. Since when do players follow safety protocols? Right, exactly. Right. Um, Also, when it comes to random things, random tables are setting material, right? So if you wanted to let players know about um, elements in the game, some of the background of the game, such as altered carbon and the arrogance that the Meths have, the Methuselahs have, or in Eclipse phase, the this constant Cold War battle between the anarchists that live on the outer ring and the inners, the inner circle people who are more or less into the old economic factors, having terrorist activities and corporate teams striking back at the anarchists outside the ring, maybe has zero to do with the players are doing at that moment, but those things could literally be happening. Player characters on a maglev train, boom, big explosion, maglev train gets derailed, PC's part of that maglev train, right? Or um, a terrorist faction shuts the power down in the city, and people are trapped in elevators going up into 200-story plus buildings, and automated vehicle systems are out of whack, and they all start to shut down or go out of control. There are ships trying to land in an orbit on a spacecraft, but now the automated autopilots piloting system that takes over to land all the spacecraft goes out. So now everyone has to do it by hand, but no one trusts anyone. And the ships have to come in at some point, and the PCs are now involved in it. And just so happens your escape ship, it's out in orbit because it can't land now. So you could throw in a number of external factors or factions even, and then throw that in there as a like a it's that X factor that gets thrown in that disrupts what the PCs are doing. Yeah. Yeah. Like Lurker says, the transdimensional veil is weak in this sector. Any faster than light travel could cause a rift. Why not? Maybe that's the reason why they can't hyperspace their way out of like faster than light travel, because of you know come up with some pseudo science fiction thing, and especially foreshadow it before it happens, right? So, um, one thing about using randomized tables is that you really don't want to, if you don't have to, use it within 30 seconds, right? You might want to use it as an inspiration. So you could roll on your random tables or pick a random event and then foreshadow it happening in the future. When you get a one of these boring messages about not using faster than light travel because the transdimensional veils are thin, and the PCs are like, I thought we were doing a corporate you know um, intrusion or something. Well, all of a sudden now things go wrong. They need to get the hell off the planet. Now they can't use it. Here's why: because you've already gotten the message. You can't use it. Deadman says, anyone want to guess how many OSHA violations the PCs have accrued? It's got to be in the triple digits at this point. As many as PCs running around with like heavy weapons on starships and stuff. Which brings us to something else, which we might talk about next week with 3D printing, the fun of 3D printing. Cameron says, now I know why there are no handrails in space. It's because players wouldn't use them even if you sharpen them into spears. What's with the no handrail thing? Like, really? No handrails? Like, that's a long drop. You didn't even bother putting any handrails on it? They're like, well, we put handrails like the first arm length out. That's good enough, isn't it? It's the same person that doesn't build the handrails in those dwarven caverns in dungeons in fantasy settings, right? You're like, really? You stopped here? But people are excellent randomizers as well, right? Tesla puts in no OSHA compliance TV tropes. Oh man, no OSHA compliance trope as used in popular culture. Industrial complexes in which cinematic battles are fought always seem to have been built. Oh man, let's go. Let's read the rest of it. Yep, have been built with a callous disregard for the safety of workers. Inside, you're likely to find narrow catwalks with simple rope and cable and no handrails, inevitably hung by what might as well be knitted yarn over open, bubbling vats of green acid. Yeah. Massive exposed machinery flailing everywhere without protective covers. Yep. Safety switches in awkward places far from machinery that they control, assuming that there are any safety switches at all, or they're even functional. Blast furnaces glowing fiery red in other hazardous conditions. So terrifying that any sane person would probably insist on a six-figure danger bonus to even go near the place. How true. How true. How many times have we seen that? Like, it's exposed to space. We've got to get away from the dangerous thing. Like a scene that comes to mind is Will Smith in iRobot. Pulled that one out of nowhere. Will Smith trying to investigate the murder of someone in a house that has been programmed for demolition. And what happens? A big giant mech starts ripping the house apart, and he's got to run, jump, tumble, roll, and backflip and all that kind of stuff to get the hell out of the house, running down the hallways and jumping through a window before he gets smashed by a big old mech that destroys the home. And the big mech is destroying the home by destroying it like a child would by smashing it with his hands. It's like, what? Like, cool look, excellent scene, but like, that's kind of unsafe. How much debris be thrown all over the place? And there literally, there's no, like, they didn't include a sensor that can sense, I don't know, the heat from human bodies inside of a structure. Now, mind you, it was sabotage, but that sabotage can work in your favor as a game master, right? So handrails were the next thing installed, but the contractors were unionized. They were like, hell no, you got to pay 12 of us to put up a handrail. It only takes one of you. Sorry. The United States Chemical Safety and Hazard Investigation Board has published a number of videos with a YouTube link describing in detail the various ways that industrial processes involving hazardous or flammable substances can go very, very wrong. That actually sounds like that's actually kind of a cool way to pull some stories out, right? And like I was saying before, um, you know, the random thing of a bunch of workers make a mistake and something falls and now there's something out of control, poisonous gases in a habitat, plasma flames shooting out, sparks firing everywhere, uh, powerful electromagnets causing disruptions, or heck, even strong magnetism in a particular hallway, or through a particular sector of space or something like that, could be a real thing. Arachno communism instead. Wait, dude, no, you spelled it wrong. Oh God, oh fuck, they're coming for us. uh, that's funny. That's hilarious. Which actually sounds kind of a cool thing too. That could be the symbol for an anarchist sect. Oh man. Now, in the other part of science fiction, I think sometimes that we tend to ignore is and this applies from everything we talked about all week, is to make things personal, right? So, despite having your random table and rolling on it randomly, and everyone rolling their eyes because, okay, here comes yet another random effect, right? Along with anything from like corporate corporate mercenaries are on patrol looking for, doing a security sweep, or local juveniles are spray painting color changing graffiti on the side of a building, or there's a old school, drug dealers or something, dealing in, techno drugs that you, with VR, with snuff films or something, like, along with those individuals hanging around in, say, seedier parts of your habitat, or the rich and powerful doing deals behind closed doors, but the PCs just happen accidentally to stumble upon a thing. There's also the idea that maybe things are very personal. Um, a player character stumbles upon a cousin that just so happens to be in a particular location, a long lost relative, someone that used to be part of a military organization that the player characters are no longer part of. Um, any number of those things could happen randomly, and especially when we're talking about cortical stacks, resleeving bodies. Heck, our main character in Eclipse phase, excuse me, wow, I mixed up two things. Our main character, Takashi, in Altered Carbon, um, spends spoiler alert, spends most of his interactions in the Altered Carbon world while gaming, being followed, being shadowed by his own sister because she's in different bodies. So you could actually retroactively make this random effect by having 1 2 5 different NPCs really just be one single NPC retroactively being a person who has randomly been following around one or more of the player characters, right? Who's to say that in Eclipse phase the characters are firewall agents, that random individuals in the background isn't yet another firewall agent, much like internal affairs, where it's the cops that police the cops. Who's to say that it might not be some other individuals or more than one individual following them around, or some random AI that has achieved sentience that happens to have a particular interest, or maybe wants to be free by one of the player characters and is following them around, causing random things to happen for good or ill. The genius hacker kid that happens to see the PCs or intercepts with the PCs and wants to um, get themselves involved in what the player characters are doing for good or bad, and just so happens to be affecting streetlights and maglev schedules, and heck, even hacking into the mist and smoke of virtual reality ads that are overlaid in people's vision as they start walking around the local shopping mall or something, and starting to affect that. Like, there could be so many other things. Heck, political rallies are included in random events. Um, makeshift makeshift places where people are selling goods and services on the street. Lurker talks about Agent Smith in the Matrix, where Agent Smith just happens to be standing in the background, watching the main character go about doing their thing. Right? Yeah, why not? Why not? As a matter of fact, because we are dealing with transhumanism, you guys know that we've done episodes on um, the fact that within transhumanist gaming, that you may not even be able to trust your own memories. So who's to say that a player character is not being hunted by themselves? Because the player character is a beta copy, and the real player character is the person who's following the person who seems to be acting out their life, who thinks that they're the original, but they really aren't, because a fragment of their personality happens to be running around, i.e., one of your player characters, and the real personality is like, yeah, I need to go stop them and reinstitute them, because they don't know they're just a copy. Heck, you could have even been part of a faction where you've chosen to consciously be hunted by yourself to make yourself better, make yourself stronger, faster, more competitive, more, and there's an assassin to go after you, and that assassin is you, because there are like 30 different U's hanging around the solar system, each trying to hunt the other one down to see who could be on top, and repeating that same thing over and over again, right? Trying to get yourself better, because that's how you want to evolve yourself. Um, there's so many things that you can do to make it personal. An enemy from a past game or a past mission comes up and it's like, yeah, I didn't die yet. Just before you put a piece of tungsten steel through my brain, I was able to beam my consciousness out to, or heck, you did kill them, you destroyed their cortical stack, but there was a copy of them left on, some far off place orbiting Neptune, and they've just finally gotten back to Mars where the PCs are at, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to exact my revenge, you piece of and again, having nothing to do with the current mission, but having everything to do with throwing a monkey wrench into the system. Um, a PCs are walking down the street. They're like, okay, we need to be really quiet. We need to make sure that we sneak up on this corporate guy. He's wearing a ring. That ring gives us the codes to get into the secret files. And then all of a sudden, on Tridio screens all over the place, it's like wanted pictures of murderers, and it's the PC's faces, and they're like, what the hell? Who would have our faces? Why would they blame us? What the hell's going on? And random table, right? Some random criminal organization, some random rival, anything like that could have been happening. A PC is some kind of popular elitist, and one of their rivals who wants to get more Instagram followers posts something up that everyone is starting to giggle about. When the PC is I don't know, has taking a really bad dump and someone recorded it or something like that. They made it public, but you get my point, right? Um, yeah, yeah. Like Lurker says, I think I'm a clone now. There always seems to be more of me around. Is that a song lyric? I think I'm a clone now. There it is. I can't go more into it. I'll get dinged for it. Yeah. Yes. Which could very well be a truism, right? Um, yeah. Random enemy posting PCs wanted posters. Listen, y'all, it's all a sabotage. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Why not? Why? But the more I think something that I didn't include in it is that yes, random tables and randomizing things. I'm talking about the good and bad of them. And sure, there is a little bit of that eye roll, like, oh, here comes another random table. But if it gives us enough inspiration, and if we make it as personal as possible, then I think the original concept of the random table starts to fade away because the player characters start embracing the personal part of it. This is making things personal is where that mantra of like the murder hobo comes in, where the person has no family, they're all dead, they're wandering around, they have no home, they have no connections with anyone. But in science fiction, for the most part, even the most nomadic characters have some connection somewhere, even if it's a connection to the underworld, right? Like, you could claim that Han Solo doesn't have a connection to anyone, but really, between obligations and running around, the seedier parts of the universe, well, there really is a connection. There are rumors about people and reputation that you have to take into account. And when the player characters are an espionage mission and someone is actively trying to destroy their reputation, and they need their reputation to garner favors to maybe leave a place or escape someplace, yeah, that might be the thing. Shit. Tesla says, I'm reminded of the Black Mirror episode with the politician and the pig. One of the best Black Mirror episodes, hands down. Oh my God. But yes, you are absolutely right. Especially when the politician's assistant is like, well, listen, you don't want to be too quick, but you also don't want to let it last too long. It should be about 20 minutes. Oh man, yeah, you don't want to be too quick because you don't want to act like you're actually enjoying it. But on the other hand, Oh my god. Oh man. Yeah, Cam, I'm with you. That was one of the funniest episodes of anything ever. Because you're like, which politician, which one of my favorite slash worst politicians would I want to see have bump nasties with a pig on public television? Hmm. Yeah, lyrics. Yeah, I think I'm a clone now. I think I'm a clone now. There's always two of me just hanging around. I think I'm a clone now because every chromosome is a hand me down. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Something else that could be random as well, talking about complications, is becoming a cult of personality. Why, we oftentimes we think of player characters being on the bad part, the receiving end of the trouble. But what if a player character has enough persuasive ability, charisma? What if they're a diplomancer? They created a character that's a straight up diplomancer, and then all of a sudden they start creating a cult of personality where people start dressing like them. Fashion starts changing. Listen, this is high tech, right? Today we have influencers who change the way people dress and speak and act and hairstyles and makeup and that kind of thing. Why wouldn't a random player character with a lot of influence begin changing? Oh, everyone's dressing in teal because the character has a teal scarf around their neck, and they start because bodies are, you can sleeve and re-sleeve yourself with a cortical stack. Maybe people start ordering their cortical stacks with genetic structures, at least physically looking more and more like one or more of the player characters. Like, man, they've got a really sharp nose and a really good lip structure. I think I'm going to order a body and slip into it. And when the PC runs around the corner, they see like 6 of them hanging around at a diner eating food and laughing exactly the same way and dressing similarly, and you're like, what the hell is this about? And then no one believes that the PC is actually the PC because they're like, oh, that's a really good looking them up and down like, wow, you really are carrying that body really well. Like, but it's me. Like, of course it's you, right? Because it's me too. Yeah, like an icon background in Starfinder. Oh, heck yeah, and maybe it's the it is the ramifications of rolling a crit or double crit on your persuasion check, because not only did you persuade that guard, but you persuaded everybody else. Some rando person's watching you on a monitor screen, like, they make a lot of sense. Wow. Man, they're so cool. I'm going to dress just like them. Or the authorities are like, we need to catch these criminals, showing videos of the PCs running and gunning through a habitat, and everyone is like, yeah, they're like a symbol of rebellion. We're going to act just like them. Let me put on my red and black Michael Jackson jacket with all the useless zippers because I'm going to dress just like them. Why not? Why not go for something like that? What are some other random things that can happen? Well, didn't talk about alien influences, but yeah, aliens. Aliens are a rando thing, whether it is something mindless like a random virus or living thing that gets out of a place, right? Most zombie apocalypses when it comes to science happen through some random event that had nothing to do with your main protagonist, but it gets out. So what if the player characters are in some kind of dome city, and of course someone's working on something they shouldn't be, and some corporate person is like, we need to shut it down and burn it down. But unfortunately, what happens? Some intern somewhere who breathed in or injected themselves with something because they thought they were doing the right thing walks outside of the place that's getting destroyed and burned down by mercenaries, and what happens? Chest bursting. Alien gets out. PCs are like, what the hell's happening? I thought we were doing an espionage mission. And all of a sudden, one by one, yep, Cam, yep, xenomorph attack, just one. That's all you need. Yep. And then all of a sudden, maybe the we're stealing sensitive data mission becomes a, we need to, we're going to get hunted down one by one by xenomorphs, right? So, and that's a really, while on one hand, this can come out of left field, right? Like, you're like, on the other hand, you could lead the characters down a very it's the idea of yet another boring day, flipping it on its head, right? You go to your characters, I mean your players, and you go, "Hey guys, you guys are going to do another espionage, stealing files or something," and they all roll their eyes like, "Oh, another one of these." Fine, okay, it's your game, we'll play in it, and then all of a sudden it turns into a xeno hunting survivalist. Solar flare happening just now, so no communication is possible. Security systems shutting all the doors down because of the xenomorphs running rampaging around, corporate entities making sure, shooting people as they try to leave, and the PCs are now like, okay, so behind us are xenomorphs, ahead of us is the corporation that caused the damn thing to happen in the first place, and they're sniping us to try to get out of here. What the hell, right? And again, none of that having anything to do with the player character's specific goal. It could just be the random things that are happening outside of them causing the thing to happen. Oh man. Lurker says, Valentine Michael Smith bringing the concept of Water Brothers to Earth. I don't understand the reference. And I feel like I should. Did it pick up your vocalization strangely? Because either that or I'm just stupid. Rickard says, elaborate for me, please. Rickard says, if there's one thing Shadowrun has taught me is that there's no such thing as a covert espionage or stealth mission. Yeah. You might think you will do it quietly, but we all know you're going in through the front door, guns blazing. Yeah, unfortunately. I know I haven't talked about it in a while, but I have talked about it quite a bit on the show. There is a mechanism in the game known as Blades in the Dark that's really good for espionage, heist style missions. And the mechanism is basically the flashback scene, which is just recontextualizing a skill roll. So you could send people. Oh, Stranger in a Strange Land. That's man, it's been a long time since I've seen that. I mean, read that. I'm sorry. Stranger in a Strange Land, my favorite novel. Was that a Stranger in a Strange Land? Piers Anthony comes to mind, but I'm not sure who wrote that. I'm losing it. I'm so losing it. And I remember being a teenager, maybe early 20s. It's been a while. It's been a while since I read. Anyway, the idea that the you go on a mission without planning it first, and you have a flashback scene in which when you make a skill roll, instead of describing it, Robert Heinlein, thank you very much for that, Lurk. Yeah, Robert A. Heinlein. During that was like a huge fantasy sci-fi era of those writers. Heinlein, Larry Niven, Walter John Williams, William Gibson, a bunch of different people. But a flashback scene basically works as a skill check at a moment of time where maybe that skill might or might not be appropriate. So an example would be player characters with guns go towards front door to talk to guard. Player character says, I'm going to use my persuasion check on guard. Now, normally in real time, the guards that are standing there with you, all you guys with your guns, is like, hell no, you can't persuade them. They're going to call the authorities. But what you do is you recontextualize it as a flashback scene. So 3 days hence, you actually make your persuasion check. And if you succeed, 3 days prior, you actually describe it as talking to the guard while they're having drinks. You buy them a couple of drinks. You start talking to them. You say, hey, listen, there's a way to make some extra money. I know that you're struggling a little bit, and I know how the corporation treats you guys. Listen, just leave the door unlocked when we get there, right? Let us pass by. All you have to do is go on a coffee break. No one's the wiser, right? That is a persuasion check. But The complication of it is if you fail, you've just made things worse for yourself in that situation. So you go to the front door, you go to the guard, you tell your friends, all your allies, like, listen, talk to the guard, persuaded him, everything's cool, he's going to walk away, right? You get there, but the complication is not only has the guard not walked away, but for some strange reason, the corporation has sent in some kind of analyst or something that's like, we need to double up our security sweeps because you guys are lazy, and that's the kind a mechanism you could use in like a espionage stealthy heist kind of thing, where in real time we're flashing back to the point where they've already made the mission, they've already planned the mission without having to spend an hour and a half pre-planning it, as in Shadowrun. And Lurker says the Leverage RPG based after the TV show used the same style of flashback mechanic. Yep, absolutely. And I believe, I don't, it is exactly used in the Leverage RPG. In Blades in the Dark, you spend what's called stress to do it. And based on how elaborate of a flashback you do, is costs more stress. So you could have some kind of like Moxie, Hero Point, Fate Point, Inspiration Point system where you have to spend the thing to do the flashback to get the thing, right? Yeah, like Ricker says, damn, looks like they got their PC Pulpomatic online. This is going to be a tough fight, right? Pulpomatic. But yeah, exactly. Like, for example, complications could be things like the corporation just happens to have a dossier on all the PCs, or a strange power outage happens, and all of a sudden the backup generators come on, and what happens? They turn on all the lights, so there's no place to hide and sneak. Or today happens to be the day that they bring in computer programmers that are going to go over all of the footage with a fine-tooth comb. Or today's the day where we're going to send up twice as many drones to take a look over the area because we intend on selling our corporate headquarters. But it just so happens we're sending up 15 aerial drones that are circling overhead, and the PCs happen to be there, right? Like, it's creating a complication. So along with random things happening, you could also have random complications based on PC actions, and then just make a big list of complications that are fun. Like, how many times has Han Solo gotten into the Millennium Falcon and the hyperspace thing not work? Why? Because it just so happens someone deactivated it, or it doesn't work, or there's too much debris, or you can't navigate through the asteroid field, or whatever the case may be, right? It's this other complication. Obligations are a complication. Someone you owe money to, like Lurker says, you pay off a certain guard. The day that you arrive, the guard is not working. That shift is supposed to be working. Yeah, right. You pay off the guard. The guard's like, great, you paid me cash. You get there, and there's like, where'd Bob go? Well, Bob's gone. It's me, Julie. Why? What's the point? Oh, hey, Julie. Could you let Bob listen? Bob was supposed to leave a message for me. Julie's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I work by the book. Do you want me to call extra security in here? Because I think you have an attitude, right? Yep, you arrive and the guard's not working that shift, or is supposed to be working, but gets like maybe sent off somewhere else or whatever, right? Any number of things could happen. PCs are driving, they're driving a sports car down the road, and there's an auto accident up ahead, or there's been some kind of truck turnover on a highway. There's a certain weather event happened. The air systems in a habitat are need to be scrubbed because the air quality is bad. The water system starts to flood a particular region because of a mistake that happens or something. Inspectors didn't inspect a particular place, and all of a sudden the bolts break and a place starts getting flooded. Again, radiation leaks, blasts of flame plasma shooting out somewhere, electrical conduits with electrical wires dangling from the ceilings that are very dangerous, and the fire, police, emergency crews start coming around looking for a thing, right? A flash mob shows up for no good reason, right? There's all these like weird, strange, random things that you can throw into the game. Some of them could just be, some of them could just be rando things, and others could just be just like, hey, this is really cool. And lastly, before we get out of here, like Cameron says, or Han and Shui don't know how to keep up their ship. If people don't do reliable regular ship maintenance, things could go really wrong. Lazy players, yeah. How many times are they like, oh, we're going to change the oil? The word is never. But anyway, guys. By the way, got to get out of here. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Um, everyone have a great day. I am going to get out of here, get off to work. Thank you very much for joining in. It is RPG with DBJ. Thank you for stopping by. Of course, next week, starting at Monster Money, please join in. Thank you very much, guys. I am out of here. Thank you for watching. And we are out.